Am I the asshole for telling my daughter's school I'll only volunteer if I don't get the triplets? My daughter's school went back to in-person in March. She's 9. Well, they aren't doing a end-of-year field trip. They usually take kids to the zoo or the park on their last day of school. Instead they're doing activities outside and throughout part of the school. It's for grades 1–3. They want parents to volunteer to help, sorta like chaperoning a field trip. I have no problem volunteering, my work schedule allows it, and I love spending time with my daughter and seeing her with her friends. Thing is, prior to COVID, 2–3 times when I'd chaperone, my group would consist of my daughter and these triplets that have to always be together. I heard from other parents their mom requested it. Same classes, same groups. If one is invited to a birthday party, pre-COVID, they all have to be, or the one invited won't be attending. My daughter doesn't end up having as much fun because she's not with any of her friends. She doesn't necessarily have a problem with them, but they just kinda talk to each other, and ignore her. She's told me twice already that it's not fair that she gets stuck with triplets all the time. I guess it happens even when I'm not a chaperone, helping. The first 2 times I said sometimes she has to do things with people that aren't her friends, it's part of life. But it's also messed up that my daughter is always getting put with them. When I got the email asking for volunteers, I responded that I'd be happy to help out, but I'd prefer not to get the triplets. My wife said they're just kids and I'm being a jerk by negotiating over volunteering. ETA triplets are 2 boys and 1 girl, not 3 girls. So, your daughter is being pretty much ignored by 3 girls that are understandably more interested in keeping to themselves than with your daughter. All you want is your daughter to be given the chance to actually be included. You're not discriminating, you're just asking for your daughter to be treated fairly. Not the asshole. And #X200B. Edit. Thank you so much for the award less than 3. Second edit. OMG, thank you for all the awards everyone. Don't spend your money on me though, get something nice for yourselves or donate it to a place where it's really needed. You're all lovely less than 3 less than 3. NTA. I think the triplets' mom is. How are her kids ever going to gain any independence if they're forced together that way? Your daughter is correct if for whatever reason she's always grouped with them and ignored. That sucks. Not the asshole. Their mom asked for them to be together. Why shouldn't you get to make a request too? Not the asshole. I'm a parent volunteer and I know exactly what you mean with a child being isolated because they are put with children who are already really close. It's not fair on for daughter. Also, quite frankly, the triplets' mum who is making these demands should probably come and volunteer. As an aside, the triplets will end up really isolated if their mum insists on them being kept together. They are individual people with their own personalities, but I expect no one knows their names and just refers to them as the triplets. Not the asshole. You are generous to volunteer your time and effort to the school. Making a request about which kids are under your supervision is a reasonable request, especially considering it will make your daughter's experience better. The triplets' parents obviously have no problem asking for specific treatment for them, so why shouldn't you be able to ask for accommodations to make things better for your kid? Info. Did you tell the teacher why you don't want to get the triplets? Have you or your wife asked why your daughter is always getting placed with these girls? It's a little weird if it's always Sally and the triplets, if the triplets aren't actually interested in talking to or hanging out with your daughter. Not the asshole. Your daughter deserves to be paired with her friends sometimes too. It would be terribly lonely to always be paired with the triplets if they only want to talk and play with each other. Not the asshole. You really need to talk to the teachers and tell them to not put your daughter with the triplets every time. Once is fine, twice is fine, but every time is not. Your daughter is being isolated because they are not interested in interacting with daughter and she is not getting a chance to interact with others. If the teachers are bending over to the parents of triplets' demands, then they have to bend over to your demands as well. Your child is your priority. It is your responsibility to make sure she doesn't face injustice. Info. Please, are you the only chaperone? Who assigns kids to the chaperones? Are the triplets picking on your kid? Since your wife has an opinion, why doesn't she volunteer? Or the 2 of you, together volunteer? Thanks. Not the asshole. Being forced into a group with people who are already friends sucks for the one that gets left out. It's hard to have fun when you're alone despite having people around you. I do have one question though, how big are these groups? Nah. You were right to tell your kid that sometimes we have to do things with people we're not fond of, but every time? Are the teachers trying to get her to draw these kids out of their bubble or something? If that's so, that's not fair to her at all. She deserves a trip, fun day, school activity where she's not the odd one out. But they are just kids and don't have control over the situation either, especially since it sounds like their mom enforces codependency. Passionate, not the asshole, from someone who can relate. My dad was the only father who regularly volunteered on field trips when I was a kid, and consequently the teacher always stuck one of the problem boys with us. He had ADHD or something, and I guess responded better to male authorities than women. So I was in a similar situation to your daughter, stuck in a group without friends, and I quietly dealt with it. 20 years later, my dad and I still talk about the aquarium trip where Dad spent half the day chasing after this boy and I was stuck following them around. We laugh now, but it was not fun at the time. Not the asshole. As a former teacher, I had to ask her teachers to stop putting her with the troublemakers on projects. She keeps them in line, does all the work, and then gets retaliated against. You and your child deserve a good field trip. Not the asshole. You're going to be giving your time for free. It's okay to have some reasonable stipulations. The triplets' mom is totally the asshole. As a triplet myself, I know how hard it is to form your own identity and friend group. This mom is completely isolating them from other kids. Your daughter is right not wanting to be the fourth wheel in this case. Not the asshole. There's nothing wrong with a pointed discussion with the teacher to ask why does it always seem to occur whether you're there or not that when things are grouped off your daughter as with the triplets each and every time. There can't be any question of is the teacher aware of the dynamic with the triplets. Because of that she should rotate who is in groups with them, and frankly then they should always be either in a group alone or in a group of 5 so that it's not them isolating the one additional member. Info. Did you word the email as, I've noticed my daughter regularly gets paired with the triplets, and oftentimes she feels left out. Is there any way she could rotate what group she is in? Or, I'll volunteer if I don't have the triplets. The first elaborates on your daughter's needs and presents a reasonable request. The other seems like a weird ultimatum with no justification. Not the asshole. If the triplets' mom gets to make special requests, you should. The biggest asshole here is actually their mom. She's not doing those girls any favors by hindering their social interactions and integration with other kids by making them be together all the time. Teacher here. Not the asshole. It's fine to make a request about your group. I'd be refreshed by the honesty of a parent and I would make the groups accordingly. Your kid is probably put in a group with the triplets because she's a nice kid who doesn't cause problems. Might be the time to teach her some advocacy skills and explain the difference between being nice and being kind. Source: 21-year survivor daily herding of 7-year-olds. Not the asshole. As a parent volunteer for field trips, and a person with experience in special education, I had a teacher who would constantly pair my kid up with one of the push-ins from the special ed classroom. The difference here was that I was asked first, got ample warning every trip, 2/3 that year, and was able to ask my kid if they were okay with it. The A in your situation is the triplets' mom, and the school for allowing it to continue past first grade. These are 3 individuals, who will be unable to develop personalities and social skills outside of their closed group until they are forced to separate in high school. Horrid situation, and absolutely request that your child be grouped differently in the future, regardless of whether you choose to volunteer at this event or not. Not the asshole. There are always kids no one wants to get stuck chaperoning. Absolutely ask if you and your daughter can be paired with names of her friends for this event. Not the asshole. Info. Has your daughter tried explaining to the triplets that she feels excluded? It sounds like they consider your daughter a friend, so it could be a good opportunity to practice her communication skills. Immediately escalating without talking to your daughter does her a disservice. In my experience, knowing how to politely stick up for oneself is a crucial life skill. Not the asshole. Volunteering is supposed to be, voluntary. If you don't want to, that shouldn't be a big deal. Also, the thing with the triplets is kinda weird. Why is your daughter always with the same 3? I think asking to not be with them is more of a way to break the cycle other than you having anything against them. Not the asshole, but neither is the teacher. I understand mom's request, but it's actually really limiting her daughter's social interactions. A good teacher would take this request into account sometimes, but also split the girls up whenever possible, or require that the asshole be a volunteer to chaperone just her daughters, allowing whatever fourth wheel, in most cases, your daughter, to be with a group of friends. I don't understand why she's always stuck with the triplets, but that's really not cool on the teacher's end. It ruins every trip for your daughter. Not the asshole. My husband always used to get stuck with the difficult kid, and this was justified as he was the only male parent present and he's a big man who may be better at disciplining them. Really, I think just no one else wanted to look after them. He eventually gave up on the school trips altogether. How the fuck do parents do that? The shit makes no sense. It wouldn't matter if all three are absolutely genetically identical. Those kids need to experience other people. Experience other things from each other. That's how you develop your likes and dislikes. That's how you discover who you are and what you're capable of. Basically, what this mother did was go, I want to raise 3 of the same exact child. No variance. I'll pick my favorite later and the other 2 will suffer. I hate mothers like that. Oh, yeah, not the asshole. Not the asshole. If their mum gets to request they stay together, you get to request you don't have them. Bet the mum ain't volunteering. The teachers and admin are the assholes here. Being a triplet doesn't come with special privileges. This shouldn't be a common enough thing that it's an issue that bothers your kid, and it's literally giving these triplets special treatment over letting your kid be with her friends. When I was in the classroom, we would intentionally separate twins to ensure they created healthy social relationships and learned to manage academically and independently. Not the asshole. The asshole here is the parents of these 3 kids for forcing the school and other parents to allow 7-9-year-old kids to form cliques at such a young age. An argument could be made for the school being assholes for letting them get away with it. Not the asshole. But I think the better request would have been to put your daughter together with her friends, instead of requesting to exclude the triplets. Not the asshole. It's volunteer work, they can take it or leave it. Not that hard for them to move the twins since nothing's set in stone anyway. Making the triplets live everything together seems to me like a super unhealthy thing to do. Not the asshole. I'm a teacher and very grateful when parents volunteer to go with us on field trips. I've had parents ask to have only girls, or not this kid, or only 2 kids instead of 4. I'm happy to accommodate as they are doing us a big favor. Not the asshole. I would maybe not word it as harshly, but there should always be a rotation. Not the asshole. And I don't think the triplets' mother is doing them any favors by demanding they always be together. In a documentary where they were monitoring the development of quintuplets or something, the one child who had been ill and had to be alone sometimes to recover, had a better sense of self and independence than the rest who were together all the time. Not the asshole. A parent that demands that the triplets are always together is creating an issue. And if the kids are in groups of, that is always going to be tricky. And #X200B. If their mother can demand that they are not separated, you can ask for your daughter to not be with them. Not the asshole. And the school is doing them a disservice by not splitting them up more, and forcing more outside interaction than their island of 3. As a triplet myself, I gotta say those parents that make their kids do everything together are the assholes. That's fucked up. Wow. At our school, they made a point of separating twins into different classes where possible, because too much togetherness is not good for their social development. I kept my fraternal twins apart as long as possible. They were in the same class finally in 3rd grade in their Montessori school, and while everyone knew they were sisters, their friends didn't know they were twins till they did their circle around the sun on their birthday. Not the asshole. I will bet those 3 girls are eventually going to want to split from each other. Their mom is going to go ballistic over it. This situation is not really the same, but anyway. I was excluded pretty much always my whole primary education, ages 4–11. It sucks major ass. Of course you'd want to protect your kid from that, and especially on field trips which are meant to be super fun. Personally, I wouldn't have used it as a negotiating tool but rather just told the school you think it's unacceptable that the triplets' mother's wishes are just granted, no questions asked. It's pretty bad for their social growth to only hang out with each other. And even worse, it's hurting other kids, your kid. I'd be upset with the school for that. If I were the school and was told to put the triplets together, I'd simply not put anyone else with them then. That's tortuous. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. And as a twin I would have HAAAAATED if my school put my sister and I together. Had my mom insisted, I would have thrown a fit. I've been very individualistic since I was young. BC people would always talk about us as a set and it sucked. I also feel bad for the triplets. They're not gonna be very well socialized as they get older if this keeps up. Hopeful for a good update. Crossed fingers, crossed fingers, crossed fingers. Not the asshole. Your daughter needs a break from the triplets, maybe permanently. I wonder if the other parents are boycotting them. Not the asshole. Your wife is putting the joy of the triplets ahead of her own child. Odd. Not the asshole. This alerts the school that there's a problem with one person getting stuck with a self-contained unit, and b. that it's a serious social impediment for the triplets always to be only with each other, because they don't learn to talk to outsiders, which may be what the parents want, but it's really not good for their development and future happiness. Not the asshole. I'm a twin, and although we moved around a lot, because of my father's work, we never attended a school that would have even allowed us to be placed in the same classes together. My mum fostered a strong sense of independence in us as well. There was only one exception to the twin rule, because the mum threatened the school board to allow them to keep the girls together all the time. Yeah, those two were weird AF. They had no friends because they were so insular. Their mum had my sister and I over to try to help them make friends, but they barely acknowledged us and played by themselves. It was really awkward. You're not the asshole, but the mother of the triplets is, probably without realizing it. As others mentioned, if she has requested the triplets are always together, it's only fair that you make a request too. Also, the fact that your daughter is always the one ending up with the triplets makes me think other parents were a step ahead of you and have already requested their kids are not placed with them, probably for the same reasons. Not the asshole. Children's feelings are just as valid as any adult. Your daughter should be able to enjoy the activities. It's also weird that she is always grouped with them. The parents of the triplets are not doing them any favors by not teaching them to socialize.